Justin, welcome CFO at Home. Thanks for your time today.
Hey man, Vince, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Before we get into level up your finances, I understand that you have quite a impressive personal story of overcoming significant financial challenges when you were younger. To start us out, would you mind sharing a bit about that?
Certainly, Vince. So yes, I grew up in a small southern Iowa town where I jokingly say more cows than people. I mean, literally, there's still not even a stoplight, and it's 2025 in the entire county. So I grew up very small, rural, dare I even say poor. Went from that to a private business school and had 10 years in the banking world for experience. In my last stop in the banking world, I was a vice president of a small community bank. So you would think 10 years banking, private business school degree, be doing well because 19 years old, one of my college classes, the professor said, I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire by 40. Got my attention. I heard compound interest, started investing. I'm like, here we go. As that was starting, met a lady who I knew from my hometown. Incidentally, she had two kids from her first marriage. So when we got married, all I had to do was add water, instant family. True story, I'm not making this up. I was actually the photographer at my wife's first wedding. That's not
Wow.
made up. And it gets better. Not one picture turned out. That wasn't funny
You,
then.
my friend, are a long term planner. You had this years in the making.
Some things are left that way. And so I went from a single guy to a family of four pretty quick. And I was at the beginning of my career, so we weren't just swimming in income just yet. And by my mid 20s, we had over $100,000 in debt, not counting the house. And it was everything: student loans, second mortgage, credit cards, medical, car loans. And I'll never forget one day, shortly after we bought our house, actually, in fact, I just had this gut feeling something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it. And incidentally, it's interesting when you talk to other people in the financial professional, accountants, any of them, if they're struggling with financials, they'll tell you the exact same thing. Something's not right. I just cannot get my finger on it. And for the first time, Vince, I just said, I'm going to do an audit. So I got out pencil and paper, I wrote it all down, and I saw the problem. I can show you where I was in my house, Vince, where I brought my wife into their living room and I gave her the unfortunate news. I said, honey, just in bills, we are $700 short a month.
Wow.
That's not counting car registration, Christmas, school supplies, clothing, kids' activities, car repairs, home repairs, maybe a little vacation. None of that. It was just bills, a little bit of food, a little bit of fuel.
So you, who had a pretty good head on your shoulders as a young man, knowledgeable, ambitious, you're going to take the world by the tail as we all are at a certain age. I'm sure you chose well in spouse. So
Oh,
two
yes.
two perfectly intelligent, capable human beings, and you are not the first in history, hardly, to go through this. But I don't have a better way of asking the question: how did this happen?
Oh man, as it happens for a lot of my clients, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I've been doing that now for over 15 years. And for most of us, my wife and I included, it wasn't one major decision that put us here. It was daily choices. If you think about it, if you spend $30 a day, that's more than $10,000 a year. And $30 doesn't buy much in 2025. And so even back then when we did it, and so for me, I grew up. First thing I did was I got a credit card. Why? To build my credit was the reason. And my mom told me you only put gas purchases on this. That worked for about a month. And you can't tell by my hair, but I used to be in a rock band. No joke. I had a following of about three. And I just had to have an amp this big that was louder than anything in the world. I didn't have the money. So I'm not kidding you. I'm skipping class, calling Visa, saying, hey, raise my limit. And I don't even have a job. And they raised it. So that's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
it.
you can't expect them to do the thinking for you. So I think the simple answer to my baiting question there was you were living life. You guys were living life. You were young. And You were starting your life and
Yeah.
you did the things that young people like to do when they're starting their life. Simple as that.
Yeah, and really, we are trying to obtain a standard of living that parents and grandparents take decades to do, but we're trying to do it in a few years. Because as soon as you graduate college, hey, I got to get a nice car, I got to get a good house, and you know what? I don't go to the mall and shop. I don't go on 5-star vacations, and I don't drive $100,000 vehicle. So in my mind, I'm going, I'm making more money. Right before I did the little autopsy here, I'm going, wait a minute. I've made more money now than I've ever made before, yet I feel more broke than when I was in college.
Yeah, you make more money than you ever have, and in your mind, it's not like you're living some extravagant life.
Exactly. Yes. And I sit with my clients all the time and I go, guys, I understand. Because again, when we think of the picture in our head of extravagance, I'm not one of them. And plus, I'm smart, I'm college educated. I'm in the banking industry. How can I get here? And again, it's those little daily decisions over a period of 5, 7 years that it came home to roost.
And all you're doing is living the way the people around you are, and none of you are extravagant. You're living whatever your salary was, you're really just living the lifestyle that you believed a person, a responsible person of that lifestyle, of that income would live.
Absolutely. And without a budget or any kind of mechanism to manage the finances, all the decisions made sense. Hey, my car's breaking down all the time. It's nickel and diming me to death. Maybe I should get a new car, especially with child three showing up. And hey, renting's you're not making any money on renting, so you should go buy a house. So as quickly as I could, we bought a house. And we bought this house just like some people do, where we had that idea. It was a little fixer upper where it wasn't bad, but boy, we could do this to it and that to it. And we had friends in the real estate business, and so we thought, hey, we could turn a profit on this down the road, et cetera, et cetera. But we didn't have any money.
So again, you do the math on this. You're looking at it, it hits you. You're bringing this information to your wife to have the discussion, and then the moment of truth. Tell us a little bit about that situation.
Honestly, I didn't know how my wife was going to take the news. Again, both my wife and I grew up not with a lot, and we don't say that any bad to our parents. They worked hard, they provided, but we've never had a lot, and so I didn't know how she was going to take it. And just by I'm a person of faith, God's grace. Just she's like, hey, it stinks. I don't like it. It hurts, but what are we going to do now? And that was kind of our mentality of what we're going to do now. Now, what we did was what a lot of people do. I thought the answer was higher education, and I'm not against college, but then I went to get a higher degree, which I didn't have money for. So I had to go borrow more money, and I'm not having time with my family to borrow more money to a job that I really can't advance anymore. But I thought the degree would take, and I'm starting my next degree, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm only making the problem worse.
But again, you're following the template. That
Exactly.
is really the way that a lot of us will raise to think is education is value. And if I don't have enough, if I have a financial problem, certainly it's not my expenses. I need to up my income, and a lot of times that's the case. Everybody's situation is different, but I need to spend money
Mm-hmm.
to get a higher education
Uh,
in order to make more money. That's a very traditional way of thinking about it.
no, absolutely. And what you were saying there, I'll just be bold, is what my wife and I didn't want to admit to. We're the problem because we followed the template. So it's the template's fault. It's not our fault. But the reality is, yes, we got some bad information, but we still acted on it. And because we weren't paying attention, the mountain of debt just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And whatever little savings we had was getting lower and lower. And that's what happens to most of us is it takes that wake up call of going, okay, I can't pay every bill now. Now what?
So you go, do you actually get the pay for the additional education?
No, I stopped,
Okay. All right.
which a lot of
So,
people do.
oh, okay, but you did start.
I started getting my next level education from where I was, And then I said, wait a minute, why am I borrowing more money? This is
Right.
ridiculous. And I stopped.
Right, after you had already borrowed X amount of
Exactly.
dollars.
Yep. Yep.
So, to your benefit, the first step of getting out of a hole is stop digging. So, is is to I got that wrong. First step of getting out of a hole is to stop digging. That's right. So that is the first step. So you're able to do that.
Yes.
So was that the critical moment for turning things around?
Yeah. I eventually just said, I've got to find out what some other people are doing because the way I'm doing it is just clearly not working. And so got on just kind of this mission of there's got to be something else out there. And I found some curriculum, I found some books that made a lot of sense, began applying that wisdom, and it didn't happen overnight. But I'm happy to say now that $100,000 in debt is gone. We have a fully funded emergency fund, and we've begun investing, all by following the principles that I teach that I had to learn the hard way from after making a lot of poor choices.
Yeah, and I think it's so admirable that you take that situation that you went through, a very painful situation, and you've taken the time to systemize that, so to speak, because your book, one thing I like about your book is it is a very clear system that you lay out. There are steps that you lay out, and I like to take some time now to go through these steps. So I would imagine these steps are maybe a hybrid of what you actually did and maybe lessons learned from your experience. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so basically, I was challenged by one of my clients several years ago. They said, Justin, you need to put your coaching program either into an online class or a book, something. And I said, you know what? Challenge accepted. And so I had to sit back and go, okay, I'm not going to write word for word my program. That won't be readable. But what are the concepts that I could put into a book format? And as I looked at not just my clients, but my successful clients, the clients that struggled, and my experiences, I began to put some common themes together, and that's how I was able to create these 5 levels to go and achieve financial freedom.
So I'd like to go through the levels, but at the same time, to give it a little relatability and provide a little perspective, you've worked with a lot of clients and helped them to turn around their situations, eliminate huge amounts of debt and that thing and that kind of thing. So as we go through the steps, I'd like for you to not only describe the step, but from the many, many clients that you've worked with, maybe you can give us an example of a client walking through those steps. So
Absolutely.
let's try this approach and see how it works. So I'm going to tee you up and let you go. Level one is awareness.
Awareness. This is where it all starts. And for some, this one level alone can make all the difference in the world. Going back to what we talked about earlier, most people don't feel like they're the land of the big spenders. But again, what ends up happening is when we do an audit of what we're really doing. So, one of the things I have my clients do, every client, so if you become a client, I'm giving you a sneak peek. The first assignment I give you is to manually track every penny you spend on a spreadsheet, pencil and paper. I don't care how you do it, cash, check, credit, debit. It could be for groceries, eating out, your bills, getting something online. Everything you spend for 30 days, track it. And you will be very surprised. You'll see some good habits, but you're going to see some things that you didn't realize was as out of whack as they were. Case in point, I have workshops that I teach both in churches and in companies, and I did a 4 week course. And when I do the 4 week class, I give them the same assignment: track your expenses for 30 days. I get ready for week 2 with one of the classes I was teaching, and this guy comes up to me before the class and goes, wow, I'm embarrassed how much I'm eating out. I didn't think it was that bad at all. Now, by this time, I've done it long enough. It takes a while to get me surprised. And I'm like, okay. And he could tell he didn't phase me. He's like, no, you don't understand. I spend a lot on eating out. And I'm like, okay, well, how much is this number? And he goes, $300 a week. And he goes, if that's every week, Justin, that's 1,200 a month.
One guy. Do you find that certain, and this is what I've found, that when people go through these exercises, there are certain categories that kind of sneak up on them a little bit more frequently
Uh-huh.
than others. And I've found that food, be it eating out or even groceries, seems to be one of those categories. Is that your experience?
It's one of the top ones where our mind says one thing, the receipts say another, and we trick ourselves. So as I go through, one of the things I do with my clients is the first few months I do the budget with them, not because they're not smart enough, but they're already stressed, and I don't dictate them, but we just go through line by line. And so, for instance, the one I have the most fun with is work lunch. So I'll go down the list and I'll go, "What do you spend on work lunch?" And the common answer is, "Oh, why bring my lunch to work?" Really? I challenge them on it politely. If they're in a blue collar situation, you never go to the gas station. Well, on Fridays, I go get the pizza and the Red Bull. That's cool, but how much is that? If they're in a corporate situation, you never go to the cafeteria. Well, on payday, I get a salad and a fruit drink. And okay, cool, but that costs money. Or my favorite one is clothing. When I get people in, and that's not food, but if I have a married couple, I also coach coaches. When I have a married couple come in and I talk about clothing, I know 9 out of 10 times I start a mini fight. I just need popcorn. So I'll ask them for the year, and even if you got kids, you got to add them in. How much do you spend per year? It's going to be a guess. And the husband almost always, if I just add in my work boots and a belt, I'm good about $300. And the wife will just slowly turn her head and go, "You haven't bought stuff for the kids because for everything it's about 3,000, 3,000, and they all of a sudden I'm watching this thing go down,
Ringside seat, huh?
right? And so, but again, it's because of lack of awareness. And so it's amazing that first month we agree X amount to groceries and household items. They come back for their first follow up session and they go, "Yeah, we thought we could cut our groceries down. Oh boy, that was tough. That was like ramen noodles for the last week." And so just getting a real awareness and a lot of not just awareness, but also kind of getting in routines. A lot of people who have shopping issues with groceries, they're not shopping regularly weekly at a chosen store. They're shopping regular 3 or 4 times a week, a little bit here and a little bit there, just kind of random at will. And here's the interesting thing I learned while putting this book together. Studies show that if you do not have a budget and you're not organized, you will overspend at least $450 a month in your budget.
$450 a
We'll call it five
month.
grand.
Yeah, exactly. I was doing the head math. You got there before I did. Yeah.
Now, Vince,
Uh,
here's the interesting thing, real quick, I want to throw out there. I've been
mhm.
quoting that stat for about a year, year and a half. Every time I've quoted that in front of a potential client, not one exception, 100% of the time, and these are from people who are not doing a budget yet. They always say the same thing when I say $400 to $500 a month. They go, "At least." So here's the interesting disconnect. They don't think they're the big spender, and yet they go, "At least I overspend 400 or 500 a month."
Right. Right.
And I said
Yeah.
it with
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
shame because I was there.
Yeah, and it doesn't fit, big spender because again, it's not like you're, taking trips to the Caribbean or anything. It's just everyday spending. Before we leave awareness, there is one thing that I want to come back to. You emphasized very strongly that this first month of tracking your expenses is manual
Yes.
in this age of apps and budgeting apps that I can sync up to my bank account and it does all that work for me. Why is it important, at least in that first month, to do it manually?
I'm glad you said that because what I should have come back to is that's not how I want you to do it for life. If you want to have some automatic app, by all means. There's something about slowing it down, writing it down, or typing it out. You see it more, it's more painful. And one of the big takeaways a lot of my clients go through is they go, "I cannot believe the number of transactions I have in a month because they're just doing this or they're typing." And believe it or not, some of my clients, Vince, they'll keep tracking manually because they don't like it. And they go, "If I don't like tracking, maybe I should do it this way because I'll spend less."
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I find that once you're up and rolling, and
Yes.
everybody has a different way of doing this. I was very reluctant personally
Mm.
to cut loose from the spreadsheet and the tracking things manually and all of that. But frankly, the pace of life just started to overwhelm me. But just the same, when you're starting out, even though all of our paces of life happen so quickly now, I mean, that's the thing about swipe, 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 swipe. It's less friction for your purchases. So you have a tendency to make more purchases, and, merchants know that's no secret. But the speed has gone up so much. I think that slowing down that you're talking about now is probably more important than ever. So I certainly understand the importance of doing that, at least initially. Let's go on to the second step, which is knowledge.
Yes, so once we get aware, and we're talking about awareness, aware of your income. A lot of people aren't aware of what they're actually bringing home, what's in their deductions, aware of their expenses, aware of their debt, and not just round figures. What do they really owe in debt? What do they have in investments? A lot of people have old 401ks and don't even know what they are and where they're at. So once we get aware, which leads to clarity, now that second level you're talking about, Vince, which is knowledge. And in my book, my main area of focus under the knowledge heading or level is budgeting, savings, and getting out of debt. If you were to Google financial freedom, you could get hundreds of answers of what is financial freedom. So I took a minute and went in defining, at least for me, what is financial freedom. And I deduce financial freedom is when you have no debt but a house, emergency fund of 3 to 6 months, and a cash flow plan we call a budget that you're regularly sticking to. Now, it's not financial independence, but it's financial freedom. Why? Because if you have no debt and you get money in savings and you're living on less than you make, you're not you are live freeing that way. So the knowledge section then says, okay, how do I budget? How do I save? How do I get out of debt? You can learn that through a book, a class, a podcast, a financial coach, a mentor, a friend that's doing well. But this is where you learn the how to's of these basic principles of getting out of financial freedom.
So knowledge is really more of that standard thing that we probably think of. It's more of the execution part. And I love the way we're stepping through these, because I imagine a lot of people want to jump straight to knowledge but before they go to awareness. Why would you caution against that?
I think once you get really aware, it feeds a desire to go, I don't want to just learn. I want to learn and then go apply it. When you see that, wow, here's where I really am, it really does something. And I'll give you an example of this with the knowledge phase. And one of the stories I give in the book, and I have permission from a client to share, I'm meeting in the consultation with this couple. The first time I mentioned the word budget, the wife looked me square in the eyes and said, don't you ever use that word budget to me again. And I'm like, isn't that why we're here? I'm just saying. And I'll tell you what was interesting, because most people think of budget as restrictive.
Yep.
It may be early in the game because you've got a debt mess to clean up. But what I tell people is budget is a way of life for the rest of your life. And it's supposed to be proactive, not reactive. When people budget on their own, the first thing they do is they look back at their expenses, which is not a bad thing. But that's accounting. That's not budgeting. And what I've discovered is if people learn how to be proactive and going, no, I'm going to set my standards of what I'm going to spend this month. What am I going to save this month? What am I going to pay off debt with? You set the standard up front. Now we have a set of rules to play by. And I'll give you another story from just this year. I'm doing a class, and a lady in her 70s who's been an accountant for 40 years. She comes up to me after the budget workshop, and she goes, Justin, I got to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed. And I go, well, why? And then she told me she was an accountant for 40 years, and she goes, I have been doing books for everyone else, and they're winning. I'm not.
Wow.
And I'm an accountant for 40 years. But she said, Justin, it clicked for me when you said budgeting is proactive. And I realized all this time I am good at categorizing expenses, making nice pie charts, putting them on the tax form the way they're supposed to be. But that once you go out to eat, you can't get your money back. It's spent. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, it was a complete breakthrough." And I could see the bittersweet light bulb, one of 40 years of regret, but also of, oh, that's what I got to do. And that when she realized that switch of it's not just about accounting, it's about being proactive of how I'm going to use my income every paycheck every month, completely changed her perspective. And that's what happens when you get knowledge in the game.
So it's the difference between, and I've frankly fallen prey to this myself when going through the process of trying to implement a budget at home. If you don't implement it correctly, it can become kind of an autopsy of where your money went as opposed to a proactive plan for where it's going. So I can see how the awareness step kind of gives you space to look backwards and do that autopsy or whatever you want to call it. I don't think I
Yeah.
like the word
And
autopsy. It
then
just came off the top of my head. But to do that analysis, but then having a distinct step between, okay, we saw that. Now let's take that knowledge and plan ahead by making a real break between those two. I can see how that puts you in a better frame of mind for budgeting. And I would imagine also for that person who is reluctant to budget, to say the least, don't ever bring that word up to me again types. If they've gone through that first step, then all of a sudden it's logical. It kind of paints that picture of, hey, look, this money is going to go somewhere, whether we do this or not. It's already doing that. You already have a picture of where it has been going. This is not a game of restricting you. It is just, let's just plan ahead. It's happening anyway.
yeah, and to bring that story to a full circle, because it ends happily. This couple got out of debt, everything including their house, years later. They're still
Wow.
clients of mine. I've tried to fire them; they won't let me. And but here's the deal: I'll never forget. Now, again, I'm up in the Midwest. It gets really hot and really cold. And there was a gloomy winter day. We're meeting online, like you are now. And she was having a very bad day. You can just tell she had the winter Midwest winter blues. And I go to her and I go, "Yes." I go, "But what's the thing you've been saving for every month coming up in about 6 weeks?" And her grin went like this. She went from ear to ear smiling. "My garden fund." She had been saving diligently every month because she loves planting garden. So get this: the first time I meet her, she's like, "Don't ever use the word budget again." Years later, when she's in doom and gloom, not feeling good today, that very same thing she didn't want to talk about is what brought her a smile on her face when the day was not going so well.
Yeah, and the great thing, and I'll just put up an advertisement for financial coaches. You're a financial coach. I'm a financial coach. You need someone to walk with you through that process of getting to that daylight to keep you motivated to say, trust the process until that first time you see that payoff. And then once you see that payoff, it gets to be addictive. It's
Uh
good.
huh.
It's good stuff. But the key is not quitting until you get to that step.
I love that. And as you know, as a financial coach, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things, not all clients do this, but some do, they'll be several months in, it's getting more addictive. They're seeing the positive out of it. And then they'll start a session with, "Justin, I got a problem." I go, "What's that?" "I did the budget." I go, "That's good." "No, no, 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 no. You don't understand. I also did the next month's budget." "Cool." "No, I did the next 6 months budget. I got a sickness now, Justin. What's come over me?"
Yep, you got the sickness. Nothing is wrong with you. You look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself. But other than that, everything is everything. You don't
Right?
recognize yourself in a good way. I love that.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go on to the next step, which is momentum.
Well, the third level is commitment. We'll hit the fourth level, momentum, in just a second.
Ah, okay,
Yep,
okay.
no worries. But commitment, This is where the rubber meets the road. We can get all the awareness we want, we can get all the knowledge we want, but this is the fork in the road moment. Are we going to make a yes decision on the stuff we learned and the knowledge? Are we going to make a yes decision to doing a budget? Are we going to make a yes decision to doing what it takes to get out of debt, etc.? If you make a yes decision with commitment, that is when you see results every paycheck. But you have to make that commitment. And a story I'll share here, I'll never forget years ago, I had a single mom I was working with. She came to me with two goals. Goal one, she wants to be out of debt in 2 years, but the house. All right. Goal two, I have a second job. I want to quit the job right now. And this story is also in my book. So I'm helping her with the numbers, and I go, ma'am, I got good news and I got bad news. She goes, okay, what's the good news? We can get you out of debt in 2 years. Great. What's the bad news? That second job. And I could begin to see her eyes well up because she's a single mom doing the work of two just herself. I can't do this. You have to keep that second job for 2 more years. But if you can do it for 2 more years, you got this. And I'll never forget tears streaming down her face, Vince, going, Justin, I can't do it. I cannot do any more. And I go, can I tell you why you feel that way? Let me just put a guess to it. She said, sure. You haven't gotten any traction out of that second job yet, have you? She says, no. So far, you're putting in extra work with your financial situation unchanged, right? She goes, yep. I'd quit too. If I ain't getting results, why do it? But as you said, what does a coach do? They see things they can't see, the forest for the trees. And I said, do I have all these expenses right? Yeah. Do I have the income right? Yeah. If you follow the plan that you are agreeing to here, your entire paycheck from the second job should be going to debt. You're not going to believe me right now because it hasn't. So the logic and emotions are going to have a disconnect. But would you be willing to commit to 90 days and seeing about this extra paycheck? And she said, you know what? If I know there's a deadline to it, I'm willing to give it a shot. And Vince, every time she came in my office, her countenance got brighter. You could tell she had more energy. In fact, I learned through this that she was a smoker and she began to quit smoking. Why? Probably financially, but partially because she had hope. She goes, oh my gosh, I believe I can do this. And it's amazing because every decision we make, Vince, money plays a role directly or indirectly. Every time we make a decision, money's either in the forefront or the background. And when you can get a handle on money like she did, when you don't think it's possible, you all of a sudden feel like you could go after hell in a water pistol.
It's that's first of all, I'm so glad you corrected me and stopped me from skipping commitment because I feel kind of bad about that because I think this is where it falls down for so many people because again, this is that bridge, this is that getting started. So you're aware of the problem, you have knowledge of how to fix the problem, but then committing to that and sticking to it before you get to see the fruits of your labor, that is critical because academically, back in the knowledge phase, you can learn about the debt snowball and how it works and ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. But before that sucker starts to build up momentum, like you said, you're throwing everything at that debt and you're not necessarily going to see instant results. But it's when the momentum stuff, well, I don't want to say momentum, but it's once you have the commitment to keep going and keep going, and that snowball gets bigger and bigger. And as the snowball gets bigger, your you get to keep more of your income to do things you want to do with it, but you have to have the commitment to see that through. One person having that commitment is enough of a challenge. Let's talk about couples for a second because again, commitment is where I see things fall down with couples simply because you can walk them through those first two steps together and both of them have the academic knowledge, but maybe they don't necessarily have that same level of commitment. I've seen couples, there are some people who can be frugal for the sake of being frugal all the live long day. There are other people who can grit their teeth and get through it only if they see the light at the end of the tunnel. For couples who have instinctively kind of a different level of commitment, that commitment for one of them may be easier because they're naturally frugal than the other. How do you sync them up? Because in my opinion, this is where buy-in, and by that I mean mutual buy-in, is critical.
Vince, you're exactly right. And you've probably seen this as well. And one of the things I tell my clients from the get go, we start talking about communication, goal setting, mindset. I would rather you guys be unified and disagree with me than not unified and do it right.
You don't know how much I love that.
Cool. Well,
Because I know just what you're talking about.
yep. And so when I meet with couples, I don't have to say much, and they'll start talking about how they grew up. And almost always, both spouses grew up in totally different circumstances. This one couple comes to mind that I worked with, and they were on the fence if the house should be sold or not. And the husband's like, I can sell it tomorrow. And the wife's like, I can't. We'll start digging into it. And I don't want them to sell the house, but then we're going to either get more income in or something. And what happened was the husband grew up as a child multiple times homeless in a car. Wife always had that middle income home. So for him, he's like, hey, if it's got a roof over my head and windows and heat and air, I good. Perspective, right? And they were able to make some things happen so they didn't have to sell their house. But that's just an example of just two stark differences growing up. And I'm a huge fan of a guy, you may have heard of him, Dr. John Deloney. And he talks about this thing, we speak in words but think in pictures. And I teach this, I've been teaching it a lot now over the last year or so, and it is gold. And why do I teach it? Because if we don't have the same picture, we're going to fight. And the example I use is not financial, but Thursday nights are my busy nights, busy days, excuse me. I get up early in the morning. I go to a men's group Bible study. It's the only night I work late with clients, so I get home exhausted. So imagine me getting home late. I go to my wife, what do you want to do tonight, honey? And her response is, I'm tired. I want to relax. I'm like, me too. I want to relax. Yay. So I go downstairs, turn on the TV, get me some popcorn, and where's my wife? And about 8 minutes later, I hear the bathtub running. And I go upstairs, there she is in her robe with a book, getting ready for a bath. I'm like, well, what are you doing? She goes, well, I'm going to relax. I go, well, no, we're going to watch TV together to relax. And you see where this is going. The next thing you know, we're arguing about why the fork's in the spoon drawer. Because we didn't have the right picture. So what I ask my clients to do is this. What do you picture getting out of debt looking like? What do you picture raising our kids financially like? What do you picture retirement like? What do you picture? What do you picture? What do you picture? I just did that today with a client who they're actually doing quite well financially. If you saw their balance sheet and their age, you'd go, well done. But they're doing this, saying the same thing, they're crossing. And when I say, think about the picture, they're like, oh my goodness, that takes on a whole new value. The other thing I do with couples, the way I was taught with budgeting is you meet at least once a month to go over your numbers. And that has worked. But what I've learned for couples, especially when they're starting out, and if you were to meet with me and you're married, I will tell you, pull your phones out, and you're going to meet weekly for the first 2 months, 20 to 30 minutes. And we're going to be the same time. Is it Saturday 9 a.m. while the kids are watching cartoons? Is it Sunday 2 p.m. while where kids are taking a nap? Are you going to do it? When are we doing this? And you're going to meet weekly because there's a lot of moving pieces. And when you sit down and have to discuss it, it's amazing what can happen. And I want to share a story from this year on this that just is one of my favorite stories on this. As I'm sharing with this couple how to meet weekly and what a 15, 20, 30-minute meeting should look like, this is a couple who, even though they're on the same property, wife's in the house, husband's in the garage, they can't even look at each other and talk about money. And the husband's telling me, he's trying to explain to me why the wife is kind of on and off on Zoom, like sometimes showing her face, sometimes not. He's like, you don't know how bad it is, and he's walking me through just how bad and their tension, and they're just not doing well, and they got teenagers, and we walked him through meet weekly, and if things get bad, one of you got to walk away fine, but start meeting weekly. Don't blame anybody. Fresh, we're going to show grace. We're going to be awesome. I honestly left that meeting not knowing where it was going to go. A month later, only the husband shows up. And I have a rule: if you're married, both spouses have to be in my office or be on. I won't do one spouse unless there's something major going on. I need both of you here. And when he just showed up, I went, oh, no, 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 no. And he goes, no, 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 sorry, my wife couldn't make it. She had to work late. I know we got to reschedule. That's fine, but I wanted to at least be here. And I could tell he had a little bit of pep in his step. And I'm like, I got to ask, we're going to reschedule, but how'd the first month go? He goes, Justin, if you would have told me our weekly meetings would have went as well as they did, and they weren't perfect, I would have said you're nuts. But on Sunday, we were supposed to meet on a Tuesday. He goes, 2 days ago, my wife texted me to come inside. And Justin, we were intimate for the first time in over a year. Now, I'm an animated guy, and I know this is audio, but I'm going, woo, yeah, right? I'm like excited, and he's like, and this is a very intense kind of guy's guy. He's built, he's got all the things, and
Right.
he's starting to tear up. He's like, Justin, I thought that part of my marriage was over.
Wow.
And they're talking more and more. They're crushing the debt together, and we're working. And there was a lot of things there. But just having that weekly meeting, now, I'm not going to promise every weekly meeting is going to be roses at first. You may have some fireworks. But when you can get to a place where you trust each other enough to go, let's meet weekly for a season, it's amazing what can happen.
And I think it's important that we say that we also cannot guarantee that it will end in intimacy. We're just telling one person's story, but in all seriousness, it's so interesting how there's definitely this interrelation between financial tension in a marriage and other problems in a marriage. And and I had this conversation with another interviewee just last night, another conversation I had, just the high percentages of divorces that are related to financial issues. And there is such a relationship between those two things. Now, a lot of times you hear that people have to take a step back from the financial situation, solve the other issues before they can attack the financial situation. But this is an example of, in a sense, it working in reverse, that working through that financial issue and just working together on it, not solving it, but just changing the way that you attack it, promoted togetherness that actually heal that marriage in areas that have nothing to do with finance.
And I like when you're saying that because here's the real deal at the end of the day. When you study the stats a little deeper, money isn't the number one cause of divorce, it's communication. But the number one communication issue is around money. So when you
Makes a
get
lot of
your
sense.
money com- communicating well, you start going, where else in our marriage can we implement this? Like my wife and I, we meet 3 hours every Monday morning at a local coffee shop. We're talking everything: kids, business, finances, the whole 9 yards, because there's a lot going on. And what we've discovered is we can either be proactive in our life, like money, or we could be reactive. And what's interesting, Vince, and I'm not taking credit here on this other than just I know it works. I have worked with many spouses who were already in process of with a marriage counselor or a marriage therapist, and I believe in them. My wife and I have been through marriage counseling. It's been a huge thing for us. So I'm not at all putting it down. But the number of times I've had my clients tell me, "You're better than our therapist," and I am not a therapist, but I'm giving them a framework that if they commit to, back to the commitment level, things happen. Now, you mentioned, I'm going to go back a little further from what you're talking about what I call the gap between knowledge and commitment. And if we, to bridge the gap there is accountability. Again, it can be a coach, it can be a friend, it can be a mentor, it can be a whoever, pastor, it could be a brother. But when I created these 5 levels, and I know I got the other 2 levels to go, I don't know about you. Any book I've ever read, even the ones that I believe 100% of the content in the book, there's always a way to break their system down. There's always some part where you can say whatever. So I said, if I'm the reader, where am I going to call foul ball? That's not going to work. And I went, it's the gap between knowledge and commitment. And that's why I tabled it, or called it rather, the cycle of regret. And the cycle of regret is where we get awareness and knowledge, and versus saying yes to what we know will work, we start making concessions or excuses, or, I'm not going to do budgeting that way, or I'm not going to sell this, or I'm not going to get rid of these subscriptions. I'm not. And the more non negotiables you have, we all can have non negotiables, that's fine. But I mean, with some clients, they've got like 10 non negotiables, and I have to tell them, there is no financial plan on planet Earth with that many non-negotiables that's going to get you to your goals. So you have to choose your non-negotiables. Because what ends up happening is we get aware, we get knowledge, we get excited, but when we reject what we're learning, we end up going through despair, and then Vince feel like a failure, and you're not a failure, but you feel like one, so you then just quit.
I mean, because you never really committed, you never trusted the process, as they say in sports.
Yes.
But yet at the same time, you want to throw up the flag and say, okay, we failed, when in reality, you didn't really try. So I can see that that's the critical point here, because once you get commitment, now we're going to get to the good stuff. Let's talk about momentum.
Yes, momentum. That's when every paycheck, every month, you are seeing results. So if your goal is getting out of debt, you're seeing your debt go down every single month. And what's so cool about that, when you get momentum, that traction, that's the feeling you wanted when you started all this in the first place. I just want to see that light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a train, it's actually hope. And you're starting to get it. And Vince, I don't know about you, but I've been doing this now. I'm starting my 16th year. Let me tell you, it does not get old when that light bulb goes ding. I'm getting it now. I'm starting to get it. And that's what that momentum does. And as we talked about, it's addicting when you gain momentum. And it could be small amounts of momentum or a lot of momentum. So I'll never forget, case in point, I have this story in my book as well. I had this one couple where we found if they cut their spending down and got on a reasonable budget every month, they had some serious cash flow to just start going after that debt hard. They were excited. I was excited for them until they came to me the first month and said, we had a car breakdown over $1,000. All right. But hey, you had the cash to cover it. Didn't go in the debt. Great. Next month, 2 appliances went down. Okay. Bummer. The next month, they found out one of the kids need braces. I mean, the first 90 days, boom. And I'm going, uh-oh, this client's probably going to quit. I'll never forget the husband saying, Justin, had I met with you guys 6 months prior, it'd be game over. But just doing the budget and paying cash for what we would have usually went in debt for would have been enough. I've had clients, Vince, where the first 6 months we didn't know life in turmoil was going to happen, either job loss or other unexpected major events. But we look at their debt going down, and some clients just making minimum payments. Now, I want you to do way more than minimum payments, but I have had clients just by making minimum payments reduce their debt $5, 6, $7,000, and they go, "Oh my goodness!" And that's on the small side. Now, what we got to be careful, Vince, in momentum is what I call the 4 Th's of momentum that will slow you down. And slow's an acrostic. S stands for situational principles. L stands for life circumstances. O stands for out of gas. and W stands for weak results. Those are the four thieves that, while you're in momentum, if you're not careful, can rob you and put you right back in the cycle of regret. And you can tumble down, as a pyramid graphic in the book, and you'll go the wrong way because you allowed one of these thieves to steal your momentum.
Yeah, and those are to a certain extent self-explanatory. If we have the time, I'd love to go into those, but that verifies something that was going through my mind. It's one of the thoughts that was going through my mind is no matter what type of plan we lay out, life is going to continue to happen. We're going to get fatigued at some point because life continues to happen. And those are the type of things that we have to be mindful of. And I love that you have a system that explicitly says, okay, you're getting a little momentum here, but warning, warning, these are the things that come up that can slow that down. I love how you've spelled that out. But once you get that momentum and you are cautious and don't let those obstacles slow you down, that's when you get to the master level. Once you endure all that, you get to freedom. Let's talk about freedom.
Freedom. Again, financial freedom. No more debt, but maybe a house. You got a fully funded emergency fund. So if you're listening to this right now and you have debt, take a moment and imagine, what would it be like to have no payments to anybody? You got 10, 15, 20, 30,000 dollars in the bank just for emergencies. Now, for some of you, that may be hard to imagine, but just take a minute and imagine that for a second. When my clients reach this, and they all feel differently in different ways in different places, but when you get to a level of where that's gone and you just conquered a big mountain, you feel like you can do anything because you have that freedom that you've always wanted. And the story I'll use is I'll pick on my wife and I. So I'll never forget years ago, we have 5 kids in total, and we have a local. This is in one of the last chapters of the book. We talk about this in the Freedom chapter. Actually, right across the street from my office is a local barbecue joint where they have very good barbecue, very inexpensive. Hickory Park for anyone here in Iowa hearing it, and they make the best cheese balls. I don't care if you have a gluten allergy; it's worth not feeling well. That's how good they are. And we have kids with gluten, so I understand how that works. Um, but anyway, it was one of our daughter's birthday, and we were getting out of debt, and we gave our daughter an option. You can get a gift for your birthday, or we could take the family out to eat, and you can get birthday ice cream. And she's, oh, I want the birthday ice cream. Okay, great. So I'm figuring this out. I'm like, well, we can all get entrees. Kids get the kids meal. You're the only one getting pop. I'm doing all this mental gymnastics in my head to make sure we don't go over budget. And as the waitress is coming over, my daughter looks at me and goes, Dad, can we get some cheese balls? They're $7. We don't have it because we're so broke, as Larry Wingett says, I couldn't even pay attention. And I had to make a decision in that moment. Am I going to splurge when we don't have it? And I look at my daughter in the eye. I go, honey, you're going to get birthday ice cream. It's going to be great, but no. But Dad, no. Now, you know what's interesting? She's never needed counseling because I said no on her birthday for cheese balls.
She got over it.
But what was interesting was years later, I'm at my church teaching the class, and she happened to be sitting in for funsies. And as I'm teaching the class, I bring up the story she had forgotten about. By this time, she's a teenager and she's a little quick witted. So when we get done, we're walking to the car. She's like, Dad, you owe me cheese balls. So what did we do? We had a cheese ball date. Now, why? That's just financial freedom, cheese balls. Justin, bring this home. When we were sitting down, I go, was that no worth it? And she goes, yes. You want to know why? Because we got out of debt. We could do club. She wanted to do club volleyball for a season. That ain't cheap. We could cash flow that. She wanted to do other things in life that she was able to do because we made a price up front to win. And now we're at that place of financial freedom. Now we can. Now can we do everything? No, we still can't go to the Maldives. Someday maybe. But that freedom didn't just buy cheese balls. It bought other things too.
And that financial freedom, you talked earlier about the difference between financial freedom, or at least there is a difference between financial freedom and financial independence. That financial freedom puts you and your family on the road to financial independence. Not only that, but we talk on this podcast a lot about generational wealth,
Mm,
because the idea of people going and building first generation wealth, they want that to be the first of many generations. So not only did your decisions put you and your wife in a position to build wealth for yourself, but you're planting seeds in your kids that will probably be more valuable or just as valuable as any money you leave them, because you're not only going to leave them money, you're going to leave them with a sense of how to manage that money. Building generational wealth is not only you building wealth, but preparing that next generation to manage it. That's beautiful.
I love it. And when I work with clients that want to be the generation breaker, that we're going to be the first one to stop being broke, we're going to be the first one. I go, okay, you're going to have to work twice as hard as your kids will ever have to work. Because anytime you blaze a trail and be a pioneer, which is awesome, it sounds great in a book, you got to put in twice the work to get there. But it's worth it. And what's really cool is one of my mentors, he grew up a lot like me, where when his kids were young, they were broke. But as they got older, they began to see the harvest of doing the right things. So they didn't just grow up with money forever. They didn't just grow up broke. They got to kind of see both sides. And his kids are all grown and gone now, and they're doing great. I'm watching my kids. Two of them are gone. A third one's going to get married in a few weeks. And it's just fun seeing where they're doing. And to your point, to build the generational wealth and stop what my wife and I weren't able to have for ourselves. And those five levels that we went through: awareness, knowledge, commitment, momentum, freedom. Guess what? Once you've obtained financial freedom, those same five levels apply to gain financial independence. The book's not out yet. Stay tuned. I don't know when it's coming, but I don't know about you, but when I see people get financial freedom and it's time to invest, it's like they're starting over. It's just like they were when they didn't know what they're spending on eating out. And
Yes.
so we got to get aware of how much do you need at retirement? What kind of withdrawal rate? When are you want to, all what are those awareness? And then knowledge. What's a mutual fund? What's a stock? What's a bond? What's an IRA? What's a 401? So you can see how this plays into financial independence once you gain financial freedom.
I will be on the lookout for Level Up Your Finances to financial independence. I love that. I love that. So, Justin, I've really, truly enjoyed our time. There's nothing like, we're running reasonably late in the evening, at least here on the East Coast, with this recording, but there is nothing I like better than chopping it up with another financial coach, and really exchanging ideas and then articulating those ideas to an audience that's listening. Again, you're a coach, I'm a coach. We have different approaches. I think we just want everybody to get help. So having a coach on like you and urging people to pick up your book, Level Up Your Finances, I have no problem with that. Your website is levelupyourfinances.com, where that the book can be purchased. We talked about your social media. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. We'll have those links to the show notes. Outside of that, any other ways for the listeners to follow up with you, or you have any speaking engagements or anything coming up that you'd like to let's share?
Yes, we are just getting started in getting. We have workshops that we're doing, and we're getting that rolling. I have another website, strongtowerconsulting.com. We are beginning to build the speaking part of that. There's some videos of me speaking. We'll be putting some more content out on that as we get there. But yes, if you want to look at me for speaking, just go to strongtowerconsulting.com/speaking, and would love to talk to anyone that wants to have me come out and do some workshops or keynotes.
All right, sounds good, Justin. Well, again, I want to thank you for your time. Being 200 and some odd episodes into this podcast, there's not a lot of new territory that I'm going to be honest with you, but there's always fresh perspectives. I love the fresh perspective you bring. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for your enthusiasm Thanks for being on CFO at Home today.
Man, Vince, thank you so much for having me.